Welcome to The Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Denise Nicholson. I'm the author of Sila, When Mommy Left for Foreign, and the creator of this podcast. I am so excited because today I have Mr. Donald Jeffries here, and Mr. Jeffries is the author of I Could Have Been One. Welcome, Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you.
He is ready, guys. He has his book and he is ready. He just held it up like, yes, here I go. This is it, Denise. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you taking the time to come and share your message and a little bit about yourself. First of all, I want you to tell the people what was so important for you to write this book.
Well, I felt inspired to write it. And there's a lot of people that they live in the present. They don't think about the past. And if we don't know the past, we don't know how we got to the present. And the present is a projection for a possible future. So that history has to be had. And a lot of when I was growing up, I was taught the evils of communism. Nothing was said about socialism.
Mm-hmm.
My roots were conservative Christian. I drifted away, and I don't believe I'm, an exception. I think I'm more of the norm of what happens. And I learned how it is so easy to start leaning over to the left. Now, the title of my book, I Could Have Been One. Well, one what? I could have been a socialist easily. I was going in that direction. But then, after I really started thinking about what was happening, I realized what I was doing. I started coming back to my roots.
Yes.
And a lot of people do that. They're busy making a living, supporting a family, raising a family, having some vacation time now and then. Their mind is not on political matters. They may elect and exercise their right as a citizen of the United States to vote, but then that's it. They forget it. They leave it up to the politicians. Well, because I recognize the importance of the history, I decided to write the book giving the background on communism and socialism, going back to the 1800s, to the Communist Manifesto, to Karl Marx, and how that small booklet that he wrote for a convention of communist movement acted as a stimulus for a lot of different movements, anarchy to communism, socialism. Communism is needed to support socialism. So there are different degrees, but the ones that really took off was the communists. And of course, the socialists.
What exactly is it? Because you said a lot just now, and one of the things you said was that you could have been one. You could have been a socialist. You could have been going to way left because, you were so concerned about being different, or were you just so concerned with helping everyone because you were brought up in the Christian world and you wanted to make sure that everyone had equality? Is that why you wanted to go that route?
I headed over to the left because of what was put out. Like, for example, election time on a proposition, school lunch program for illegal alien children. The tactics the left will use is shame and guilt. Don't you want to help the little children? Well, everybody wants to help the little children.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if that, I remember when that came up on the California ballot, and my feelings was, I voted yes because of that tactic that was used, helping the little children. There was some others ballot measures that came out that I voted yes on, according to what the left wanted. I did it to help people. I was falling into the socialism, which true socialism is not actually helping people. It's creating utopia, which cannot be on this earth.
Or it's an attempt to create utopia, because if you're saying that it just cannot be on this earth, then maybe the people who are thinking this is important, socialism is important, maybe they're trying to create a utopia that just cannot exist because you're trying to make everyone equal when everyone is not equal because of abilities or disabilities or whatever the case may be.
Yes, exactly. The word itself comes from two Greek syllables meaning nowhere. Trying to have utopia on this earth. Okay, as a Christian, as a believer, I believe in an afterlife. My goal is to prepare for that afterlife. So, yes, I want to help people by following Christ. He said, the poor will always be with you. In the Bible, it states, you help widows, you help children, you help those who cannot fend for themselves. So in that respect, that's how they pull the Christians in to working with the socialists. Excuse me. But you're definitely correct in that human nature takes over. In Russia, communist country, there are billionaires there right now. It's changing. It is in a change. The pure communism would not allow for billionaires. In this country, it's changing. What is called modified socialism or communism. It brings in aspects of capitalism. But that human nature is always going to be there. Greed is always going to be there because of human nature. Greed in itself is not evil. The use of greed excessively is evil. Back in the 1800s, which I reference this in the book, there was an organization called Socialist Christians that formed because they were against capitalism, because they felt that humans were made greedy by it. And that greed itself was evil. Well, greed is from the mind, from actions. Greed itself becomes like an emotion. It's not evil. person using greed to the excess is evil. As far as was the socialist Christians now have a new name, Christians on the left. Makes it sound a little bit more positive. And one of the themes in the book is there's nothing new. It's the same movements over and over, same tactics. The communists use certain tactics. The socialists are using those same tactics today to take this country.
So tell me a little bit about why is this so important to you? What is your background? Why is, writing this book about the stance of socialism and capitalism, and why is this so important to you in this day and time? And tell us a little bit about your background. Why did you come to this conclusion that this is the time for such a book?
Because the history has to be told, the background has to be told of how communism started, how socialism started, even how anarchy started. Anarchy has played a not as an important role, but it has played a role in our own history. We had a president that was assassinated by a self-proclaimed anarchist. When I really started, I got involved with a conservative movement. We had to educate ourselves in order to educate other people. That was when my studying of the social political history of this country, and by extension, the world, actually began. That was like my mentoring days. And I realized that, excuse me, the history has led up to what is happening right now. For example, this election that is coming up in November, in my mind, it is the most important that has ever happened.
Where do you see America now? Yes, go ahead.
Because if the wrong people get in the White House, this country will turn communist. And regardless of who goes into the White House, I feel that there's going to be a big backlash one way or another. One of the questions that, for example, people from Russia who have able to leave Russia and come over to this country are saying, if this country becomes communist, where else are we going to go?
There's nowhere to run.
No.
You run to the rock and the rock says, no hiding place.
That's right. And
so you think that this election is one of the most important for America. Where do you see us now? Are you hopeful?
I am hopeful. I do have faith that Trump will win. And of course, Vance would become vice president. It has been shown what Trump can do for this country. It's a proven fact. So I believe he can turn this country back around from the progress that the left has made, the communist, socialists, far left, liberals, etc.
Are you not concerned with some of the things that happened after he was not, after he did not win the last election?
President Obama, I feel, had a certain agenda of what he was to accomplish. When Biden got in, he had a certain agenda. They all have handlers.
Yes.
When he got in, he had a certain agenda to follow up on what Obama had done and take the movement further.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's the self-proclaimed communist who is now running for president, Harris. So one has built on the other. It's by an agenda.
So I don't know much about her stance as a self-proclaimed communist. Can you just give me one statement that she said to back that up?
I read it somewhere. I did not hear the statement,
Okay.
but I forget where I read it. But
Mhm.
she actually came out, and it was like in a casual conversation. But it was being recorded. It was news. And she said that she was actually a communist. I think somebody asked her a question about if she was maybe a socialist or where she was politically, and she said, "I'm a communist." Like I said, I don't remember where I read it.
Well, I just want to interject here. I believe that had she been a stance or a person that believes in communism, I think that's one of the things that would have been highlighted in this election. And so, it is fair to say, I've never heard that. I've been watching closely for a few years, and I've never heard that. And so just to say that it may be another tactic that others are putting out there because they want to get their agenda. Now, like you said, they all have handlers. They are all, in my view, puppets, because they are unseen hands that are moving these chess players around to fit their own agenda. So I believe that every person that is representing the White House, they do get, they are being moved around. They have unseen hands that are telling them the agenda that they want to focus on. And so, for example, when Trump was coming in for his term, he had certain stances and certain beliefs and certain things that he wanted to get done, and then those things did not get done because as much as he wanted to, he's being handled also. They're all, like you said, they're all being handled.
Well, it's true. They all have their agenda. The concern is, what is the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
And with the left, the agenda is coming from the United Nations.
Mm-hmm.
They have a program. It's called the United Nations Agenda for the 21st Century. It's known as Agenda 21 for short. There's also Agenda 30, and now there's an Agenda 50. They have reset goals objectives. They have reset objectives to get to the goals of the original Agenda 21. These goals are to be completed in 2030 and again to finalize in 2050.
Okay.
And that is the communists and socialists. On the conservative side, yes, there is an agenda. It's keep this country great and to defeat the communists and socialists. We have had 3.5 years of high inflation, of action being taken or action not being taken to destroy this country so it can be rebuilt into a communist country. this is actually in the playbook of the communists. Now, the communists themselves have stepped back. They believe in taking by force. They're letting the socialists try to do it politically. Now, I have heard, I have not checked it out for myself, so I don't know if it's actually true. But someone said that the communists and the socialists made an agreement. If the socialists could not take the country politically, then the communists in this country would step up and they would take the country. Well, we have had military age Chinese man come across our border into this country. We have had the Chinese purchase land close to our military bases. We have had Venezuelan, another communist country, very young man, military age, coming into this country. So the country may be infiltrated by communist troops, actually. So that's why I said one way or another, it doesn't matter who gets into the White House, there's going to be some kind of backlash, either from the conservatives or the communist socialists.
My stance is, if we don't know, like you said, where we're coming from, going to the future that we desire is not going to be without a lot of turmoil, because you must know where you're coming from in order to know where
Yes.
you're going. So I understand that, and I do appreciate that you took the time to write this book, because you feel like it is such an important it's an important issue to talk about right now, because there is struggle in this country for one power or over the other. I'm just gonna, say that I see a lot of positives in this country, as well as there's so much to work on. And I say that because I came here from Jamaica, West Indies, and I had the opportunity to better my life, get an education, become the person I am today, because of the opportunities that were extended to me. And though it may look like it is freehand that the country has, or socialism, it benefited me. I was a 15-year-old girl. I was pregnant as a teenager, and I had a child by the time I was 16. Now, statistic would say there's no way this girl is going to make it. But because of the opportunities that were given to me, for example, in my community, I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York. In Mount Vernon, New York, in 1988, when I got pregnant, there was a program for children, young teenage mothers, called Young Mothers Educational Development. It may seem like handout to some person, but it changed my life. I am a doctor of nursing practice today because someone gave me the resources that I needed to complete my education despite being a teenage mother. So I stand for equity, as well as, giving people the opportunity to make it on their own, but we also need equity, because I that was when I was 15, but I have well been on my own, not getting government help for a long time. But at the time when I was 15 and pregnant, going to school was the most important thing to me. And I couldn't go to the high school because where there were non-pregnant mothers, because that was the rule. But because they knew that education was the key to success, or one of the keys to success, they made arrangements for young mothers to have a separate place to get their education and become developed. So, I just wanted to say that it may look like socialism to some people, but it's really an opportunity to get people up off of their feet, or to get them up on their feet rather, so that they can be a contributing part of this society. Because I believe that without that help, I wouldn't have had the same leverage as my neighbors.
Mhm. You are a fine example of what this country is about. I mean,
Absolutely.
America is about individuals having the freedom to use the programs to make something of themselves. Now, in the book, I also say, well, I declare that there was times I was on food stamps. I was having a hard time of it, and I was on food stamps. Another time I took advantage of I did it to a point, of a program back then it was called the Unemployment Office. And they had a program with the university in the town for night classes. And one of those programs was for drafting. Well, at the time I was on unemployment, and they asked me if I would be interested in the program. So, well, I enjoyed drafting in high school, although I wasn't really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did enter this program. Now, I did not finish. Everything was fine until I found out that I would end up being in a cubicle, being one of many, working on the same project. And that just did not appeal to me. So I left the program, but I did take advantage of the program existing. That can still happen without communism supporting true socialism. It can be done under capitalism. In fact, these programs were done under capitalism. The ones that you took advantage of, the ones I took advantage of. So that can be contained within capitalism. We don't have to have a totalitarian government.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
but yes, I agree with you.
Well, you come from a background where, or you grew up in a town where segregation still exists. How do you break through from such racist treatment of people?
Yes, back in the 50s when I was growing up here, both whites and blacks lived under Jim Crow laws. Now, I had no idea at the time, and my friends that I grew up with had no idea why it was that way. We just knew it was. They lived on that side of town. We lived on this side of town. Now, my next door neighbors are black. I used to go to a restaurant downtown and have lunch because it was close to the school. And I would sit there at the counter and I would see, this is in the book, I would see the black manual laborers that worked downtown go to the back door, order through the back door, receive their food at the back door, go out in the alley, sit there and eat their lunch. And I could not understand why they could not just come in the front door like I did and sit at the counter and have lunch.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make sense to me. But of course, later on, I found out about Jim Crow laws. And so, yes, I lived a part of America's history that I understand why it happened. It should not have happened, but I understand why it did. Due to the circumstances of the time and the people of the time. now, in the present, we have been working on the actual just living as human beings without, yes, when I see my neighbors, I see black, they see white when they look at me, but we're all human beings. We should be treated all the same.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so we have come a long way since the 50s. Now, some of what happened to get to this day, like affirmative action, to me, it started out for a good reason and it went sideways because quotas got involved. Businesses had to have so many blacks, Asians, whatever. And schools had to admit so many of different races. Well, when you put quotas in there, then it's forced integration. It did not help the blacks. It was primarily because of blacks. It did not help the black. I saw a young black man be pushed into accepting a position of responsibility he was not ready for. He would have been ready for later on, but not then. I saw a black lady who had gained a similar position talk to him and tell him he owed it to his race to do it. He got the position, he failed. He wasn't ready for it, but everybody wanted to get a feather in their cap, using him to do it. And the black woman wanted to get another black into a position of management. Well, she lost in the end. The white guy who wanted to promote him lost in the end. And he got a bad taste in his mouth with that company. And I ended up packing up his belongings and mailing them to him. And I hated doing that. I liked that guy. But that was because of quotas and anyway, I got on my soapbox.
These are some very important issues that you brought up, and it's just part of the fabric of America. It's affirmative action was put in place to help just give people a chance, because discrimination was ensuring that people of certain color or a certain race did not get ahead.
Right.
And so affirmative action, was put in place to counterbalance the effect of discrimination. Yet, like you said, it was not used in many times, many different areas. It was not used properly, but it was still primarily in place to help people that were being discriminated against. So that's one of the things that this country has. It's part of our history. It did help when we needed it. Yes, some people misused it, but I believe that it helped when we needed it. I'm still for affirmative action, and would like for it to, because there are places and environments still, even today, 2024, where discrimination is strong, depending on who you are, what you look like, and what you stand for. discrimination is still strong. And so because of those things that we cannot change, we cannot change how people feel, how they grow up, how they feel like it is supposed to be because that's the way they want it, or that's the way that benefits their group or the people that they want to upheld. So some actions, may still be needed to help reduce the effects of discrimination. You also said another thing about communism and your concern for socialism. And, I believe that if we really take people at their word and do our homework, that's one of the things that we can prevent. We do not want to have a socialist country. We do not want to have a communist country. What we have is valuable to us, important to us, and something that we would like to pass on to the next generation, to our children and our grandchildren. And so if we can pay attention not just to major elections like the presidential elections, but to what's going on in our city, in our state, to the, choosing the people who help to run our communities, and see who is for advocacy for social justice, who's advocating for what's going on with our environment. I know a lot of people don't believe that there is climate change, but climate change is showing you that it's happened or it's happening. And with the way the extreme temperatures are, or just extreme weather is, and I watched some news yesterday, and there were so many different flooding around the world. It, you know, I say something has changed. Something has changed. So we have to look at the people that are for environmental actions, that are for supporting healthcare access. I'm a nurse practitioner, so making sure that people get proper quality healthcare is important in my family, to me. And advocating for social justice is important also. So we have a lot of things that we are, this country is good at, and some things that we don't want to enter into. We just don't want to enter socialism, and we don't want to enter communism. So how do we do that? What are your takes on how do we refrain from going down that path, knowing the history and giving the future that we want all our children to have, this land of freedom where you can have opportunity? How do we get there?
I wrote the history book to educate. There has to be education. People have to realize what communism is, what true socialism is. It isn't just helping people. It's under an agenda to make everybody equal, which we both agree is not going to happen because of human nature and because of abilities and disabilities. Now, as far as making people read this, well, the only way I know how to do it is to take advantage of what you're offering. The knowledge can be given to a person, but what the person does with that knowledge is up to them. That's their responsibility. My responsibility is I wrote the book, I'm getting it out there, and I would like for everybody to read it.
Yeah. And get, take what they can from it and make good decisions afterwards. Yes, of course.
Exactly.
Where do they get this book?
Amazon, mainly, which Amazon has made it international. It is a 5-star book review award. Also, there were 2 other very good reviews. In fact, I have a whole list of comments that came out of those reviews about the book. But actually, what I said a while ago brings up that question number 1. What is the bold promise that I would like to share?
Oh, yes. I was just getting ready to ask you, because on this podcast, we like to ask those 3 questions just because it's a time to just give you and an opportunity to share with the audience what your thoughts on are and what your plans are for the future. So please tell me, what is one bold promise that you can share with the audience?
Well, upon reading the book from start to finish, and depending on the reader's generation, the memory will be jogged. Their historical information will have been increased. They may want to conduct further research of historical events. Hopefully they do. And they will have been brought to a point of decision making. Now, the second question, what a bold statement can I share that will cause a paradigm shift?
Yes.
Again, depending on the reader's point of view of history and current social political conditions, their beliefs will be either confirmed or begin to change, or the truth will be denied. Because the book is truthful. But it has a lot of research behind it, and the references are right there in the text. They don't have to go to the back of the book or anything.
Okay.
Some questions may have been answered with the reader having the opportunity to learn what they had not before. That is important. I had to have the opportunity to do my research, to have a reason to do it. I write about a lot of things that I would say most people don't know about, simply because they did not have the opportunities that I did in the conservative movement to learn it. There is also congressional records in here, but it's the hidden has been disclosed, is the way I'm phrasing it. And pieces of a puzzle have been placed together to expose the full picture. Okay, now, number 3, what bold move would I like to make in the future?
Yes, please. What bold move would you like to make despite the outcome of the election? What bold move would you like to make in the future?
I have begun a spin-off manuscript from this book. The manuscript will be part factual, based on present and current, past and current events, and part fictional, as a projection of future life under communism-supported socialism. I have also composed a study guide referencing this book concerning the United Nations Agenda for the 21st Century, also known as Agenda 21. Now, if this book does well, I would like to, number 1, have the second book and the study guide published separately, and 2, the second book published as a set with this book, and 3, the study guide published as a set with this book, and 4th, All three published as a set to give options of purchase and learning.
I said bold, but you are bold and busy.
I hope I am.
Oh, Mr. Don Jeffries, thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspective. And please, audience, go out and order your book. I could have been one. Get your book as soon as possible and just learn. Get his perspective so that you can learn from what he's saying. You can never be so hard to the left or right where you're not willing to learn and listen to someone else's perspective, because that's how you grow, that's how you stretch, that's how you know what are the steps that you need to take for you and your family and your loved ones. Just stretching yourself so that you can, be the best version of yourself. Thank you, Mr. Don Jeffries, and I'm looking forward to all of the bold and busy moves that you have coming up.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure.
A wonderful pleasure. I'm looking forward to having you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.